So hi everybody, welcome to the Astrology Squad. We're here to give you the astrological inside track on newsmakers, celebrities and historical figures. And we hope by doing so, we're going to teach you about the planets, the zodiac signs, your own horoscope, and also give you some ideas of what astrology can and cannot offer. My name is Frank Clifford. I'm a full-time astrologer, writer and teacher. I run the London School of Astrology, which offers courses online and in London. And I'm here with Richard Swatton, my co-host, who also teaches at the LSA and is a psychotherapist. Anything else you want to say about yourself, Richard?
Not really, that I haven't said on other videos. Just I'm really pleased to be doing this, and it's a great forum. It's a great format because it encourages us to be creative and to also go into what we know and what we don't know.
Well, that's right. When we look at the chart of any well-known person, we only know what they've constructed,
Yeah.
what may have been revealed in biography, and even if it's autobiography that we're looking at, we're still going on the image that is crafted for a book or for a television show. And we never really know anybody the way we know ourselves.
Yeah.
Or somebody that we live with as well. So we're looking at the sign of Cancer, and the example that we both chose was the chart of Tom Cruise. Before we look any further, just a couple of notes. We don't have a birth time for Tom Cruise. New York State happens to be the Fort Knox of birth records. It tends to be very, very protective of anybody's birth time, particularly after 9/11. A lot of the American vital record bureaus closed down to inquirers like myself, always looking to get birth data and research people in the public eye. So we don't have that. We do have a 3 o'clock, 3:16, 3:06 time that pops up on the internet. It gives Tom Cruise a Scorpio ascendant. I think Richard and I were both veer towards Scorpio rising, but you never know. Astrology is one of those amazing tools. You think you know something about someone, their chart, and the birth time or birth certificate pops up, and it gives you a different view and helps you to question where you are coming from. Those of you who know anything about rectification will know that you give 12 astrologers a birth time or a chart to rectify, and they'll come up probably with 10 or 12 different answers as well.
Yeah.
And it's something that Richard was talking about in our previous video that we recorded on Jordan Peterson, is that astrology is a creative art. And not only are we interpreting somebody else's chart, we are seeing it through our own lens. And so my perspective is always going to be through my own personal lens, where I am in the world right now, how I'm seeing the world, what I've done to work on myself. And I'll only ever see it through my lens. Richard will see it through his, and you'll see it through your own. So that's another reminder that the birth chart is this remarkable tool of self-discovery and the discovery of the people around us, but can only ever be truly understood through what you understand about life and yourself too. Would you want to add anything to that, Richard?
Only that there are so many now diverse schools or information about astrology: karmic astrology, medical astrology, mundane astrology, psychological astrology divided into the humanists, the analysts, all kinds of it, and transpersonal astrology, of course, which is to do with spiritual karma and all of that. It's a tool, and the symbols of basically training in astrology is to do with getting to know the symbols as well as you can, to facilitate a dialogue between image, imagination, and intellect. So it can only use what you have. And so in beginning astrologers, as I did, which probably you did, we're looking for the definitive way to examine and describe a chart. And there are some astrologies in the world which say this is the only way. And when you are using any image system, there is no only way. including Kabbalism, including the runes or tarot. It can only use the psyche of the person through whom the images are being contemplated upon. So if I contemplate one, it triggers off things. Now, we're well practiced because we're about 30 years in the making of all this and so on. So our interpretations are not the definitive end result, if you like, of finality. You take a chart in an instant and then in another instant. And as you know from my work, Frank, you can interpret a chart on many different levels, on a mundane level, in terms of events and predictions, in terms of personality traits, or in terms of things that will happen, or attitudes, or whatever. So there is no definitive way, but there is a definitive symbol. This moon is in Taurus, this sun is in Cancer, and that will define the limits of our interpretation. See, so there are wrong interpretations and there are right interpretations which surround the image, and that, I think that's important, that there are well-defined criteria in a chart. Saturn is not Jupiter, so you cannot confuse the two. But within that, there's a very large amount of creative stuff that you can do, and who knows where creative inspiration comes from.
Well, maybe that's part of why it's creative inspiration. If we knew where it came from, we'd end up pinning.
Somebody would try and sell it, wouldn't they?
That's right. Or we pin it down and then it would lose its creative inspiration. Yes. So with Tom Cruise's chart, we have the sun in Cancer. The houses may be wrong in terms of the ascendant, where the planets are. And the moon also changes from Cancer to Leo from about midday. So there's 50-50 chance that it could be in Cancer, which makes him a double Cancer, sun and moon, or if he's born in the afternoon in Syracuse, then he's got the moon in Leo. My instinct, just from what I know about Tom Cruise, and that's little in terms of not knowing him personally, there's a charisma that comes with the moon in Leo. Would you agree, Richard?
Oh yes, you were talking about reconstruction of the chart. Sorry, I've forgotten the word. Was it
rectification?
Rectification, yeah. You know, there are different ways of doing it. Noel Till, one of my faves that I learned a lot of astrologers, he brought out a book called Astrology of the Famed. And in there, he uses a cross between the old ways of a rectification, which is to do with events and the MC and all that timing of events, solar arcs, and what you might call descriptive stuff. And I've always liked his descriptive stuff. So in other words, does the moon in Leo lend itself to what we know about Tom Cruise? Well, yes, it does. It's the dispositor of the sun, and the dispositor of the sun always, in a way, expresses the sun more, or has a tonal quality about it, which takes that sun's energy for having a personal relationships with people, an intimate bond, following your emotional trends. I'm a Cancerian. I can't believe, when I look back on my life, Frank, how many of my decisions were made emotionally. Not strategically in terms of my career or anything else. Just, oh yeah, I want to do that. That's what I like astrology. I like music, and the rest kind of either fitted in, or I fumbled around and didn't do well organizing the structure of my career. But that wasn't important. The sun sign said, yes, follow this. So every sun sign has its own line, has its own path, and that path is to do with emotion. It is to do with doing those things he loves, and you see all of that. So we're going to Cancer in a minute, but the moon in Taurus, moon in Leo, is a person that comes alive emotionally when they are recognized, when they are seen. See, it's a highly creative sign. It loves play acting. It loves fantasy. It loves making magic out of life. That's what the Leo is. Sometimes it can be a little bit demanding in terms of look at me, but that Scorpio ascendant, which I feel is right, is somewhat demure in that, doesn't like too much personal intrusion. He likes to display the image, yes, likes to do that, but then likes to go back into a personal world in which people can't grab him. I think that's the problem with people with fame, is that people want to grab everything. They want to get inside the personal life and the so-and-so, and if you do that, he would be lost. Neptune on the ascendant got a poor record of living life through and being okay, because it's as if you have to be the idol with which you're given. It's the Marilyn Monroe position, and there's a lot in there. And I think there is an image that he gives. You don't know his personal life, you don't know him personally, and perhaps that's how it should be. I like the rugged Mars conjunction, Mars ruling the ascendant, the rugged image of the He-Man, the hero, Mission Impossible with all the gadgets and all that business. Top Gun, wouldn't you put that word as a Mars thing? Guns firing into Yes. And I like this moon in Leo. I think it fits him.
I also think the need for the family, which is the sun in Cancer, as well as the need for children, and I think that's defined, certainly defined much of his life, that need to have children.
Yes.
Even if Scorpio isn't rising, if Neptune's not rising, we still have a grand trine between in the water signs, which again, I think the public tend to see this, the Leo, then they tend to see the Mars square Uranus. And this is a man that does his own stunts. The next time a film is made, he wants to push himself to more extremes. That feels like Scorpio, but also there's a great risk taker. We know the cruise control, they call it, which we'll look at in a moment, I'm sure. But this ability to do things that stuntmen do and to enjoy pushing himself to the limits feels Scorpionic, but it could also be Mars in Taurus square Uranus, that I'm going to challenge myself, see how far I can go. And I have a lot of time for the professionalism, but also that ability to do what he's going to be doing on screen. It's been done a lot by the man himself as well. So if we come back to the sun in Cancer, do you want to say something about what that would say about Tom?
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at sun signs, we could spend a day on it. But how to make astrology practical? So I usually see signs as having certain limbs come from them. Some are more one, some are more than another. And the sign of Cancer needs to seek out those people that he loves and give them value. And so he has to be emotionally involved with those people that he loves. Yes. And so his crew need to be important, you see, because they're family. I think he's had a problematic time juggling a personal relationship in family with his children and so on, and his career. But that's what politicians get. That's what famous people do. Somehow, how do you juggle those two when you're all around the world? Can you give a personal a feeling and emotion to and devotion to those people, or are you wedded more to your Neptunian fantasy, daydreaming, film, image, all of that stuff that the Neptune suggests? I think there's probably been a conflict in his life between how he gives that Cancer. On the one hand, it's the sign of the mother, giving birth to things, being caring, being supportive. A lot in the industry say he's like that. The other part of that is the midwife. In other words, he is very protective. That's one of the great things about Cancer, is that it will protect those that he loves. Always. He sees vulnerability and he wants to help it. Automatically. I think that's why he's in Scientology. You see, that sun in the ninth, if it is in the ninth, but I think it is. And it's, besides that, it's trying to Jupiter. So it needs a kind of higher order of reality, something beyond himself. which places his own ego and that into a perspective, larger perspective, and he chose Scientology to do so. Now, it has a lot of controversial things about it, but nevertheless, I think it is a legitimate form of trying to move your psyche to a better place. Yeah. He didn't choose psychotherapy. Did you know that he was thinking about becoming a Lutheran priest when he was younger? He actually joined a seminary for a year.
Sun,
I think
Jupiter.
that, yeah, he wanted significance.
Yes, he wanted meaning, and I think his he had dyslexia, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, absolutely true.
A number of things that seemed to block his learning, and he chose the leader of Scientology, of course, Ron Hubbard, is a Pisces with Sun trine Jupiter into Scorpio, and he chose somebody that was or chose a system that was promising an emotional change,
Yeah.
or being able to be in control of one's emotional change. And
Yes.
that's why it appealed to somebody with a different chart. A different type of method, a toolkit, would appeal differently, I think. But he's somebody that was obviously struggling, and also perhaps with the Mars in Taurus square Uranus, there was a need to prove his masculinity, a need to prove his potency as well, that came up. And if we look at him away from any controversy, personally, religious wise, we see a man that has achieved tremendous success from applying himself, working hard, controlling things, controlling himself for an end product. And to be in be at the top of his game as a action star, as a movie hero for 35, 40 years, which is really what it's been. That's quite a substantial achievement. And it's a testimony for whatever he's used has been able to create that. And I find that admirable, whatever you think of the tools employed.
I find it admirable. Mars in Taurus, again, basic astrology. You need to find something that you can depend upon in order to move this Mars forward. And what has he done? Well, he's amalgamated a fortune in which, even though he was ostracized from Hollywood, he could still promote his own films. And now he's because of his controversial views and so on. So he needed to find a base, if you like, and that's through the image of Mars. He actually does fly his own jet. He actually does, and there's an opening to one of the Mission Impossibles where he's on the side of a mountain, being a mountaineer, climbing up a very difficult precipice, not precipice, a rock that went out. I've always wondered how climbers manage to kind of do that. And so he is interested in physical achievement, of having a certain amount of control and using that. That's what Taurus wants, something which you can rely upon. Something like that. So, but I wanted to get down to the insecurities.
Could I add something to that as well?
Oh, do.
Because and maybe this is where you're heading. For a chart that is so super sensitive, Sun in Cancer, the water grand trine, and if we add Pluto as the part of the kite where it comes out, which would be the control planet, we're looking at a man that's super sensitive, and we know how the sign of Cancer, particularly with men, have this armor, this armory of they might go into bodybuilding, they might go into something that makes them powerful, because underneath is somebody so porous or so sensitive to their surroundings, so able to read something and feel it or take it personally, to be touchy-feely, but also touchy and oversensitive. We imagine this is why he is such an image of the powerful leading man in his way, always, as you say, doing the stunts and doing his own thing. But yes, maybe that's where you were heading, Richard.
Yes, I was. Jupiter-Pluto opposition is the aspect of extremes. It could be in different signs and be even more extreme, But I mean, what is Jupiter? It is the urge in us to find something greater and more significant, the urge towards meaning, towards religion. And if this is done in a physical way, it's traveling the globe, growing up into space, cosmology, the discovery of more and more and more. And Jupiter is a glutton. It never ends. But that is an urge in us. See? That's what we have. That's why it's called the planet of religion and all that. But it's just as much the planet of science, because there is an urgency to know. There's a curiosity, not just of things like Gemini, you know, the things around you, but a curiosity of the spirit. It seems to, the Jupiter seems to want to pull you beyond, you know, into the extremes. Okay, what's Pluto?
Soak up everything. To soak up.
Yeah, soak up everything. That's right. He's a glutton emotionally. Wants everything. Wants every experience. I don't care, but yeah, it's not supposed to be a derogatory term. He is a full man. You take this Jupiter and you add it to the sun, you've got a furnace of gluttony. And then you've got a Neptune. Within fantasy, everything is possible. So you can portray through film, through image. Yes. All right. So you've got this circuit of enclosed emotional energy, which occasionally you see and it comes out, but he's managed to contain it in some way. Then you get this planet Jupiter, which is the planet of extremes or moving beyond, search for meaning, and you link it to the god of death, the outermost planet, which of course has been demoted since about 2007 by the so-called scientists, but we still see it as a planet. And so this is the search for the extreme until the end of death or till the end of time. You see, so this is a powerful planetary opposition, which urges a person to seek the most ultimate experiences and the ultimate understanding you can, and to whatever level and to whatever degree. Very, very powerful. And but what I wanted to also talk about is the insecurities, where they've come from. And I do believe that this Saturn rules the fourth. I know we said it's speculative, and it conjoins the fourth. And this is one of the three major aspects of a missing father, of a sense of a missing father, of possibly leading his mother into difficulties financially. And this urgency, this lack, where you see Saturn, you see a lack of something, and that produces an overcompensation to achieve, or a sense of victimization. One never knows with the chart whether it's the shadow side of the Saturn or the positive side of Saturn. This man is extraordinarily self-disciplined. He strategized his life. But it's opposed to Venus, you see. So this is, and it may be opposed to the sun. And so there's a profound sense of worthlessness underneath, you know, at first, that he was not lovable enough or whatever, or there were deprived circumstances. I believe he was very, very much loved his mother, this Cancer and this moon opposed Saturn, you know, almost empathically embracing her difficulty. Do you see what I mean? And saying, I'm not going to have this. A determination. And so I think it stems from a sense of inferiority, stemming from a missing father figure in the early home. And we can see this reflected throughout the chart. I know this is traditional astrology, but a missing father, something, Saturn in the fourth. A missing father, perhaps Sun as a configurator of the father, Neptune, a kind of invisible father. He had to call upon yeah. And even this Chiron in the fourth, if it is there, suggests a kind of woundedness around the early home. And I think that these feelings of inferiority provided an overcompensatory idea to then make it in the world and to achieve. And he's done it brilliantly. He's very well respected in, I think, in celebrity circles because of his tenacity. And we're coming back to Mars in Taurus, determination, fortitude, strength in the face of conflict. Yes, he can be a bit snappy. There was that thing released in his last video yeah, about the studios, and he said, "You've got to wear these masks, whether you believe in masks or not." He snapped, and that's the Mars Uranus. It doesn't often happen because he probably feels guilty afterwards that he snapped. But I just wanted to say that this is a chart that and that quincunx between the sun and Saturn, that adjustment between his life fulfillment and these inferiorities, he's managed it absolutely marvelously.
The bit I was going to add about that was the video released of him losing his temper is again the Cancerian need to protect. It's on his shoulders, the film. It's going to fail or succeed depending on what he does. It's his name above the title. And
never mind his money.
And his money, yes, and his reputation, and he's lashing out at people who are not, in his mind, caring for each other. So again, it's a Cancerian protective instinct that was released as him being a fiery man. Well, I've seen him lose his temper on video once in 35 years, you know, and that was it. So it's interesting. Well, you often see him. He's very respectful usually to people. He calls everyone sir, or he did. Maybe he doesn't now. But he does tackle an Australian interviewer online for
yes, I've seen
going
that.
somewhere a little bit too personal and being a bit cheeky, and he just puts him back in line, which is interesting because he didn't have to do that, but it's also, I guess it's that need for respect which comes with that strong Saturn there as well.
Yes, I think he's had to overcome that because Cancerians are not natural battlers. They shy away from emotional conflicts because they know somebody's going to lose. So sometimes they retreat into their shell, become hypersensitive, perhaps a little self-pitying, poor me syndrome. You know, there are the shadow sides of that Cancer. But with the moon in Leo, he's learned to overcome that. And I think this Mars is particularly helpful in Taurus here. And because he's learned to defend himself and he's not going to back down, and he is going to be fixed in his ideas. Look how many fixed signs he got. 1, 2, MC, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the ascendant.
Yeah.
Once he's got his mind set on something, he is impermeable. As another little phrase I learned from Till, that the fixed signs have an impermeable aura. And he called the mutable signs semi-permeable because there's a kind of flexibility around which so that could mean that he's belligerent, and he has been belligerent, like I said about Peterson, you know, especially when it came to Kustark and antidepressants, you know, because he was on his mission to say this is wrong.
Brooke Shields, yes.
Brooke Shields, I beg your pardon.
Yeah, and he's learned over the years to be more outspoken about his beliefs and criticizing psychiatry, criticizing different antidepressants, etc. Because from his point of view, he has transformed his life in a way without that. He's transformed it through beliefs rather than relying on medication. So again, an interesting controversial point, but interesting how he's over the years started to express his belief system rather than just act and just perform, just present. Anything that end on at all with the chart?
Only the fact that at the moment it might be interesting for astrologers to see how this Uranus square to Venus is going to present itself. Uranus at the moment is at 19 degrees Taurus.
Yes.
And let's have a little look here. 19 degrees Taurus. Well, it's and then it goes up to 20, and then it goes back to 19 in 2024 early. So it's around for 2 years. And normally we could see some surprise in terms of basic astrology. Venus often is his relational life, but it's in the 10th. And so I think he'll be coming back onto the scene with films of a slightly different nature, other than that rugged. He often doesn't take the romantic lead, but he did used to when he was younger. But I wonder what that Uranus will do, because it's been going over the Saturn Venus, and that's not an easy aspect to take on board. I'm unsure of it, but there's some disturbance in the force, disturbance in the structure of Saturn Venus. Yes, how to do with his relational life, to do with his happiness in personal relationships, or will it just come out in his career? I don't know, but I think that Uranus might upset the apple cart in some way, and that I think he's back on the agenda now anyway, and it's nice to see. I think he fell into some controversy, and he's through that now. Uranus past he released his latest film, wasn't it, Top Gun 2 or something, 20 years after the other one. I haven't seen it, but so that's what I feel when Uranus goes across fixed signs. It's at its most ruthless, because fixity likes the things to remain the same.
Yes.
And so when Uranus goes there, could be an earthquake.
Absolutely. And Saturn at the moment is opposing that. He's just had his Saturn return. So he's probably spent I think he's been living in England as well. He's down the road from me. And I haven't bumped into him yet. I'll invite him.
Invite him round for a cup of tea. I'm sure he'd be pleased to see you, Frank.
So Saturn's opposing that Venus, Uranus is squaring that. It'll be not only is it women in his life, his love life, the whole Venus aspect, but it's also about his image. And he's now just turned 60.
Yeah.
And that's a big milestone, particularly for a man that has created a life of action adventure films, and maybe, as you say, maybe he's starting to chisel away at that image, that celebrity action man image of the star, and will do something, as you say, quite different or challenging.
I think so, and I have a feeling, and perhaps it's just an intuition, that the second Saturn return that he's gone through is I don't think he needs any more to prove anything to himself or other people. That he doesn't have to be so serious, which is a word connected to Saturn. Seriousness, being in control, having people believe what you say. Again, that Ike thing that we were talking about, because he is an open-minded man, Mercury in Gemini. We talked about that with Peterson. He has a thirst for knowledge, for conversation, for depth of conversation, which you very rarely get in Hollywood superficial circles, right? I rather like this Mercury. So, you have a Gemini ascendant. So if he pops around for tea, I'd be surprised if you don't have an interesting, long, and enduring conversation, because and there's no doubt in my mind that he'd be interested in astrology. I mean, Mercury, Jupiter loves symbols, images, things which give you information from beyond. Astrology is it's ruled by the ninth house, which is the art of divination. People may disagree with that, but I think it's true. So good conversations had by all. I think something will be disturbing this Venus, his public image. Venus in Leo. We'll probably be able to see more, because I think there's been a maturing process that he no longer has to defend. He doesn't have to, go into a position of defense, because he no longer feels more vulnerable. He's lived 61 years or so, and that's enough, not to have to defend yourself anymore. So, well, that's your opinion. This is mine. Would you like to hear it? You see, it's a slightly different, and I think this Saturn return has been more maturing for him, that he's consolidated in his image. There's more to come, and he doesn't have to be so brittle that he once was.
Well, that's a great place to end. Thank you so much, Richard. Thanks everyone for watching. You can follow us on YouTube. You can look at us on astrologysquad.com, visit the LSA, and we look
Yeah.
forward to hearing from you as well and seeing you next time. Thanks, Richard. Thanks for being here.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.